thing to do is to wake someone up who is pretending to sleep. I don't know anything that's harder to do than to wake someone up when they are pretending to be asleep. They fight you quietly, they nudge, they roll over, they just pretend. It's so hard to wake someone up when they're already awake and they don't want to get up, and they don't want to face the day that's ahead of them, and so they pretend to stay asleep. So hard. God called Samuel in our passage, and Samuel has a situation where he doesn't know what to do. The call of God in Samuel was at night, and Samuel was resting in the temple, and quite honestly, he probably fell asleep. And when God called him the first time, Samuel really didn't know that the Lord could call someone like that. Samuel really didn't know how to discern God's calling. Samuel heard a voice, and he woke up, and he said, "Here I am." He heard his name called, and he ran to Eli. When he ran to Eli, who was the priest there, he said, "What is it?" And Eli said, "I will call you." So Samuel goes back and lays down. "Samuel, Samuel," the name calls again. The voice of the Lord calls again. Samuel gets up and says, "Here I am," and runs to Eli again. Again, he didn't realize it was the Lord. He thought it was Eli. Eli says, "It wasn't me. Stop waking me up. I want to sleep. It wasn't me. Go back, lay down." He lays down again a third time. "Samuel, Samuel, here I am." He gets up. He runs to Eli. "What is it? You called me." "No, I didn't." But the third time, Eli realizes. And Eli learns how to interpret Samuel's restlessness. Eli learns how to interpret the fact that Samuel keeps waking up because a voice calls him. And Eli realizes it's God. It's the Lord calling Samuel. And so Eli teaches Samuel how to be responsible. Meaning he teaches him how to be able to respond to the Lord. Responsibility. He teaches that to him. This is how you respond to the Lord. Say, "Here I am, your servant is listening." So of course Samuel goes back down, and still the voice calls, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel says, "Here I am, Lord, your servant is listening." He gets it right this time. Eli was the one to teach him that. Eli was the one to show him that the voice you heard that was disrupting your sleep was not me, it was God. That the cause of your restlessness was not me, it was God. That the cause of your being unable to sleep through the night was not me, it was God. So now I need you to say, "Here I am, Lord, speak, your servant is listening." And when Samuel does it, as June is reading it, I hear him read it, and it breaks my heart. Because what God ends up telling Samuel is this: Eli, the one who taught you how to respond to my voice, I need you to speak against him. Oof, that's killer. Did you see it now? I mean, the guy who teaches, it's like one of those movies where the guy who taught you karate, at the end of the movie, he's the one you gotta fight, right? It's heartbreaking. God says, "I have something against Eli's wicked sons." Eli's sons were horrible. I mean, they were just abysmal boys. They were just terrible. And Eli's the priest, so it was just bad news all around. You need to speak against Eli, the one who taught you how to respond to my voice. You need to speak against him. So now Samuel's call, the call of Samuel, is not just what wakes him up. Now the call of Samuel is what has to get him to rise up and to say to Eli some very hard words. And when Samuel knows that he has to go to Eli, he goes to Eli, and he's afraid. Because he loves Eli. He's afraid. Because the words he has to say, they're not pleasant. He's afraid. But what does Eli do? Eli is such a man of faith that he says, listen, whatever it is the Lord has told you, you need to say it. And God deal with you severely if you hold it back from something that God is trying to tell me through you. Eli was the old school guy. He was the one that the Lord was speaking to the entire time. It was Eli's job to be like, thus saith the Lord to Eli. Then Eli would go to that person. He'll go to the barber and he'll say, you got to stop overcharging people. It was God saying, God speaking through Eli, and Eli going to the baker saying, you got to stop overcharging people. It was God speaking through Eli, and Eli going to other people saying, the Lord says, I will provide comfort for you in your distress. I will be there for you. Eli was the mediator. Now God went to Samuel, and now Samuel has to go to Eli with some hard news. But what Eli says is beautiful. He says, listen, whatever it is you need to tell me, I need to hear it. And he says, may God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you have anything from me. And then when Samuel finally tells him everything, all the bad news, dripping in ink, still wet, when Samuel still tells him everything, Eli says, he is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. The call of Samuel is always a beautiful story, especially for kids and teenagers. You know, God calls you, and God, you can be young, and God can call you. It's gorgeous. The problem is that as we keep reading, the call of Samuel gets tough. Because the call of Samuel becomes one where Samuel now has to wake up and rise up. And when he rises up, he now has to speak hard words to someone he loves. But the call of Samuel is beautiful for us to hear because it shows us what it is when God calls us. How we have to rise up and respond. And sometimes we may be in the position, not of Samuel, but also of Eli, who says to Samuel, who says,